So I'm going to go ahead and open the meeting. This is the Town of Lancaster Conservation Commission meeting of September 24th, 2024. I'll start by calling the roll. David Millett.
Here.
Dennis Hubbard.
Here.
Jim LaValle.
Here.
Carl Fawcett. Carl, are you here? Okay, I don't see Carl. And Tom Seidenberg is also here. Also with us is Conservation Agent Brad Stone. Let's see, first item on the agenda, we have a continued notice of intent for Zero Heritage Lane. This is going to be continued to October 8th. Can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to continue the hearing for Zero Heritage Lane until our meeting on October 8th.
Yep, second.
All right, motion's been made by Dennis, seconded by Jim to continue to October 8th. This will be a roll call vote. Dennis Hubbard.
Aye.
Jim LaValle.
Aye.
David Millett.
Aye.
Tom Seidenberg also votes aye. Yep, still don't see. Just a heads up for people who might be here for Zero Hilltop. That hearing is not going to be opened because all of the abutters were not noticed properly. So if you're here for that, we're not going to be opening that hearing tonight. So moving along to the agenda number 2.
Tom, before you move on, can you explain
Sure.
what that means? The abutters weren't what?
So not all of the
Adam
abutters.
Zand, 202 Hilltop Road, by the way.
Yeah. Hi, Mr. Zand. Yeah. So the applicant failed to notify the abutters on Hilltop Road, or failed to notify all the abutters on Hilltop Road between the location of the development and where the sewer would connect on Hawthorne Lane. So 7 or 8 abutters were not notified. So the hearing won't be opened tonight. They'll need to be notified.
Okay. Yeah, that's the 8th isn't ideal, but all of us will deal. And that actually works with, I think the continuance with the planning board is October 15th. I don't know if one needs to go before the other. They're all important.
Yep, they'll just run in parallel. So.
Okay. All right. Thanks for the update. Have a good meeting all.
Yep.
So agenda item number 2, 10 Fire Road 54. We have already continued that to October 22nd at our previous meeting. So no vote is necessary for that. Agenda item number 3, we have a continued notice of intent for 121 Fire Road 11. Brad, I believe this is being continued.
That's correct.
To our next meeting.
Yes.
Okay. Take a motion to continue 121 Fire Road 11 to October 8th.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made by Dennis, seconded by Jim to continue to October 8th. This will be a roll call vote. Dennis Hubbard.
Aye.
Jim LaValle.
Aye.
David Millett.
Aye.
And Tom Seidenberg also votes aye. Next up on the agenda, we have a request for determination of applicability for removal of dead trees along Seven Bridge Road. This is also going to be continued. Is that correct?
That's
Brad?
correct.
Happy to the 8th.
Yes, that's correct.
I'll make a motion to continue the determination of applicability for dead tree removals along Center Bridge Road until our meeting on October 8th, 2024.
I'll second.
Great. Motion's been made by Dennis, seconded by David to continue to October 8th. This will be a roll call vote. Dennis Hubbard.
Aye.
Jim LaValle.
Aye.
David Millett.
Aye.
Tom Seidenberg also votes aye. Okay. Next up, we have a request for determination of applicability for 431 Brockelman Road, determination of stream status. Let me read the notice into the record. Should I get the right one? Yep. Okay. Town of Lancaster Conservation Commission Notice of Public Hearing, September 24th, 2024. Pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and the Lancaster Wetlands Protection Bylaw, the Town of Lancaster Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing via Zoom on Tuesday, September 24th, 2024 at 7 p.m. to hear and act upon the following matter. A request for determination of applicability filed by William Casey, 431 Brockelman Road, Lancaster, Mass, for the determination of a stream status. The property is located at 431 Brockelman Road, Lancaster, Mass, and is identified as Assessor's Map 23, Parcel 23.E. A copy of the application and accompanying documents are on file in the Office of Community Development and Planning, 701 Main Street, Lancaster, Mass, 978-365-3326. Okay. I see someone from Goddard Consulting on the line, Douglas Dillon. Would you like to tell us about the RDA?
Yep, absolutely. Can you guys hear me all right? I just want to make sure.
Yep, we can hear you fine.
Okay, awesome. Would you like me to share my screen? I just have copies of the documents of if you that makes it easier for everyone.
Sure, please go ahead.
Okay. All right. How are we looking?
We can see your screen.
Okay, perfect. So I am representing the homeowner of the property, William Casey. There is currently existing at the moment a listed stream to the rear of the property. And I believe you guys were given packets as well. And so if you follow the cursor here, it runs from north to south along the length of the property, which is this sort of L-shaped parcel right here. And under the criteria listed under the Wetlands Protection Act, which I have included in the packet, a documented field observation shall be made by a competent source and shall be based upon observation made at least once per day over 4 days in any consecutive 12-month period. And I created a series of 6 observation points, 3 to the north of and 3 to the south of an existing crossing, an historical crossing over this stream area that connects the house and barn portion of the property to the prior existing historical horse paddock area. And so those in mind, I have included pictures, date tagged on each day of each observation point, arranged 1A, 1B, 1C. This is back in August of 15th we started, and I know we're particularly dry right now in this late September, but if you guys can remember back towards that like early to mid August, late August period, we were actually almost 10% or so over the forecasted precip levels for the year per the NOAA precip forecast, and I've included a little screenshot of a graph showing that as well. We have 2B, 2A. This is the rear, sort of the northernmost extent of the stream bed in the property, and you can see the sandy sediment left there, and that was dry all throughout the observation periods. This was during a rain event, August 16th, and even during the actual rain event, there was only slight puddling and ponding of water, and there was no interconnection in between the puddles. That was only towards the 1 series of observations, and in the 2 series, there was still just absolute bone dry stream bed. Same as on the day following, and then we also noted the same as on the day following in the 2 series of observations, and then we did a little bit of a jump in order to get a breadth of data points. running, late August at this point, and it was drier than ever. And this is just sort of a view up top of the culvert, looking south at the total stream bed area. You can see the tops of the rocks are quite dry. Here are the precip levels up to the submission, or thereabouts of this report. Accumulated precip and the 30-year NOAA normal, we were actually above up to that point. And of course, under the criteria, you cannot submit one of these during a drought period or when you're substantially under the forecasted precip, just because obviously even genuinely perennial streams would be liable to run dry. But it is, in our opinion, that this is a genuine intermittent stream, and it is our request of the Lancaster Conservation Commission that they find it as such.
Okay, thank you. Brad, do you have comments?
So just to let the commission know, I did take a look at the site last Friday. So I did observe that entire stretch shown to be dry. So where the potential project is going to happen, as well as what was visible upstream of the driveway that's there. I think Goddard Consultant was showing one plot upstream, if I remember, but it looks dry in both directions right there.
Okay, thanks, Brad. Commissioners, any questions? For the record, sorry, just one thing. For the record, I'd like to note that Carl Fawcett has joined the meeting. Carl, can you hear us? Carl, are you there?
Okay. Yes, I'm here. Sorry. I had difficulty getting on.
No problem. Welcome. Okay. So back to the project at hand. Commissioners, any questions? Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, so just for my clarity, are we currently in a drought or not?
No, well, I mean, it's not unlikely that the state may declare one, in the next week or two, but we are currently not, and we were most certainly not at the time of observation, and at the time of submission of this report.
And my other question is, so what is the reason for wanting to change the status of this stream? I think intermittent is protected equally under the bylaw.
Yeah, I had a conversation with Brad, and we sort of discussed the merits of the intermittent versus the perennial, and especially under the Wetland Protection Act, it would allow for the applicant, being William Casey, to there's about a 1 foot corner of an elevator that he's looking to install in his house for accessibility reasons. That is it's about 197 feet away from the exterior most perimeter of the edge of bank.
Buddy. No.
Oh. Maybe the pet issue or something.
Yeah.
Sorry, it just threw me off track a little bit. Yes, just as is the intention of the applicant they're looking to is build an elevator shaft on their house at the moment. That is a project which I have no direct involvement with, so I don't necessarily know the extensive details of that. But it is their hope that they would just have a ability to forego like an NOI process, at least with the state, um, in order to build that elevator shaft, with this being an intermittent rather than perennial stream.
All right, so I'm just not clear on how the stream status changes the requirements. Maybe, I don't know if anybody who knows can comment on that.
So under the act, the buffer zone for the filing of an NOI with a perennial is 200, and under an intermittent, it would be 100. I would also like to know that in addition to the intermittent stream, there is a currently flagged BVW, that extends probably about 5 to 10 feet on either side of the stream, which would also, have appropriate buffer zone. And so, really it's just the stream buffer that is in question here.
Brad, you had your hand up briefly. I don't know if you wanted to answer Jim's question.
Sure. I think there's probably two that I could help answer for him. So in terms of the bylaw, so this is a where the proposed building work is going to take place. As mentioned, it's just barely into the riverfront area, and it's definitely in my mind well and previously developed there before the bylaw. So I don't have any concerns with allowing work 199, 198 feet from a stream of any kind, and claiming it's exempt from the bylaw. I think it is. So it really puts back to the Wetland Protection Act, which is really the point of this request tonight. And so I hope that answers your bylaw question there, Jim.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, and then the next part, with respect to the drought, and I'll mention this for everyone's benefit. So literally about an hour before my site walk out there last Friday, Mass DEP sent, I think, to every commission or agents to commissions looking for any information relative to stream conditions, photographs that we might have, applicants that have recently filed, as well as even information regarding phone calls or email correspondence with people looking to file in the near future. So I think that the drought task force may be evaluating this pretty soon, just if I'm reading between the lines there. And the last map that was issued with respect to the status was August 13th. And that's when it was issued, but it's important to note that the data used for that usually is collected well before then. So in this particular case, it even notes on there reflecting conditions since July 1st. So there's nothing that's been posted since then, and presumably they'll be looking as far back as data from July 2nd. So the evidence collected as part of this application would be well after that July 1st, or even after the August 13th posting of the status map. So there is the potential for some, retroactive, if the commission decided tonight on this, it could be, deemed, if a negative was issued and the commission felt it was intermittent, in the future, it's quite possible that, I think it's a slim chance, but it is possible that if the state declared a drought, that decision would essentially become null and void because the evidence was collected during that time period of a drought. If the commission's looking to make a decision tonight, that may be a special condition in there just to note. But on the other hand, I did take a look at the stream stats. It's a very, very small watershed. Drought condition or not, I fully expect that area does dry up just from looking at it. I've seen watersheds much larger than this in much wetter seasons. Well, not much, but a little bit wetter seasons actually dry at times. So it's just it doesn't it doesn't strike me as something that should be flowing. If there was any stream that's mapped perennial that you've got to overcome the presumption, this would be certainly one of them that would strike me as sure the USGS map quite possibly could be wrong on that. And those are just guides anyway. I've seen many intermittent streams that are perennial and vice versa. But at the end of the day, looking at stream stats, the site, knowing the watershed, I'm fairly confident that this truly is intermittent here. I wouldn't be hesitant to suggest the commission could render a decision on this. But it's an important note that should the state come back and say we were in a drought, at that point it does become a river again, for instance, and you got to overcome the presumption because of when the data was collected. If that makes sense to everyone.
Yeah.
Thanks, Brad. Jim, are you all set?
Yep, for now. Yep.
Okay, thanks. Dennis, you briefly had your hand up. You're okay?
I'm good. Sorry, scratching, not the,
Yep.
yeah, we're good.
Okay. So the one question I have, Mr. Dillon, is there's a pond just upstream of the subject property, and I do wonder if that's a man-made impoundment and therefore negates your analysis. Do you have a comment on that?
To the north of the property.
Sorry, I think it would be to the south of the property.
So the stream flows from south to north.
Correct, and so the impoundment is upstream.
Sorry, could you, I guess, just clarify?
Yeah, so the if I'm not mistaken, where given the map that you've shown, the stream shortly before it crosses under the driveway culvert and into your client's property, it comes from a pond between 455 Brockelman and 453 Brockelman.
Oh, yes. So that I don't believe that would not render it intermittent. It seems to be almost like a so it is culverted from the south heading north, and I mean, at this point we're kind of talking about backyard engineering projects 70 plus years old. I know the existing or the original farmhouse that all these lots were carved off of is quite old, actually. It's let's see, early 1900s. I checked over there. It doesn't really seem to have that much connectivity anymore. I mean, even during the rain event I was there, I kind of watched the culvert for a couple minutes continuously, and really at most it was just sort of like a trickle, like a several gallons a minute. I don't know what goes on underneath the road, to where the culvert lies, and
So sorry, so let me be a little clearer. So I'm not actually talking about the culvert. I'm talking about the pond and the fact that it may be a man-made, a human-made impoundment, which is one of the reasons why this methodology wouldn't apply. as quoted in the regulations 310 CMR 1058A 2A1A through C. Over 4 days, consecutive 12-month period, non-drought, a stream not significantly affected by drawdown from withdrawals, direct withdrawals, impoundments, or other man-made flow reductions. So my question is that pond an impoundment? And if so, does that defeat this analysis?
No, I don't believe it is. It has a pretty lengthy flow path that goes all the way down the road and kind of pools from much of the adjacent landscape, and that's just kind of where it collects topographically. I do not believe that it would be a man-made impoundment just based on the shape, the fact that I have Mass Mapper on my screen right now, and I'm looking at the stream that it's fed by far to the south, and that's goes through Lancaster Bloodtown Forest, and then that connects to a pretty extensive wetland system throughout the state forest and some of the adjacent parcels downstream.
So sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to more or less reiterate, I do not believe this to be a man-made detainment.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, any other comments or questions?
I'm good.
Just one. I'm wondering, Mr. Dillon, on the urgency of this, if it wouldn't behoove us to wait to see if there is a drought condition declared by the state.
So it's that in itself is kind of in itself null. I mean, at the time of data collection, we were well over the forecasted precip levels. So just
Okay.
as the stream existed during my observation, I mean, it was during when it should have been flowing, should it have been perennial. And even the stream stats report, which I submitted as part of this application, and again, those are only calculations done by an algorithm, but
Okay.
not necessarily replicating a full field report. But at the very far bottom of that stream stats report, it does actually provide a calculated probability of the likelihood that a given stream is flowing perennially. And for this one, I believe it listed the likelihood that it was perennial as somewhere around 30 something percent, approximately 35% or so. And that was the entire stream watershed, which goes, well far beyond this locust property, all the way down past the state forest, and looks like touching even near what is that, Country Club Road. So that's essentially the full length of the watershed if you look in the reports that I submitted there. So I believe there is a preponderance of evidence and fact on the table that would suggest that this is a genuine intermittent stream. Waiting for the state to declare a drought would just make this, report non-actionable just as a policy. It wouldn't, in my opinion, sort of turn it, hypothetically truly perennial, because based on the findings of fact, I don't believe it to genuinely be perennial. I guess if that makes sense. I know it's sort of we're talking about hypotheticals here, so it kind of gets a bit
Yep, I get it. Maybe one more question to the chair. Is an RDA the right process for making this determination?
I would defer to Brad. I don't see why not, but Brad, do you want to comment on that?
I don't see why it can't be done under an RDA. I think it's more common, and ANRAD is really to actually do the delineation of resource areas. But I think that in terms of stream status, an RDA is what I typically see.
Okay.
Yeah, the delineation that I referred to in the past was was submitted by my company, but like 3 some years ago for a prior owner. So we're using the section just to verify the validity of the resource area, which is the perennial stream. And no work is proposed with this RDA. It is simply asking the commission to find whether or not this little slice of stream is perennial or intermittent, no more, no less, based on the data at hand.
Yep.
Any further questions, comments from the commission? I guess just one last comment for myself regarding the man-made impoundment. Frankly, I think it is a man-made impoundment, based on the aerials and on the 1-foot contours. So I guess we will disagree. We will agree to disagree on that point. Any comments or questions from the public?
Sure, I can, if you'll allow me just quick for, couple minutes, I can find some of the 1938 aerials that the state took, and I believe Lancaster
Okay.
was, and let's see if we can see if it existed, near 100 years ago.
Well, in the 1990s black and whites, it looks like a straight line on Mass Mapper, and you can clearly see straight lines in 2021 and 2023. So it looks pretty man-made to me. It looks like, your typical farm pond constructed 150 years ago.
Yeah, so all right, my apologies, is not.
While you're doing that, Brad, you have your hand up?
Yes. So while we were discussing a few things, I was actually pulling up the soil maps just to see what the conditions were there. And I've been through this impoundment matter a couple of times before. So one of the things that I would look for if a stream is potentially being impounded by something man-made is, what are the soil conditions there? Do you have something that was bordering close to a losing stream, for instance, where anything impounded would recharge rather than overflow, for instance? And the soils here are hydrologic class D, so they're pretty tight. So if you have something man-made, unless it's a very large area and there's a lot of storage pool there, my gut again is telling me that anything that could potentially be impounded here, that influence really may not be there simply because of, again, the watershed size the soil conditions, if that's helpful to the commission, but knowing that the water is really not going to infiltrate in that particular area upstream of where that driveway is, what I just looked at, it's more reassuring that, if something is being collected and stored there and it's not going into the ground, so that likelihood is a lot slimmer.
Okay, thanks, Brad.
Okay, my apologies for it's not cooperating. So I suppose I don't know how we would determine this is artificial or naturally occurring. Just based on the overall topography, I'm thinking that it is natural. Um, are your concerns, I guess, based, on the idea that it would at some point in the future, as Brad said, infiltrate out towards that direction?
I would say I don't have a specific concern. Honestly, what I'm doing is I'm making you do your homework. So, I mean, the regulation says what it says. I see what might be an impoundment, so I'm asking the question. That's what I'm after.
Sure.
I'm after an answer, right?
Sure.
So,
Yeah, then, my answer, I would say I just do not believe it to be impounded, substantially, under man-made influence.
okay, fair enough.
Looks like it just collects from the larger basin and sort of, based on natural topography, kind of narrows down and, runs further north to where it deposits into some of those solar fields which were constructed over on that farm lot where they have their own sort of swale system. But I'm thinking it's just sort of a naturally occurring bottlenecking that was culverted by farmers, however many decades ago, so they could put a, logging road there for, whatever they wanted to do back there. But there was no sort of, aside from just it's like a 12-inch or 16-inch wide culvert. There was no real water stopping infrastructure or large, massive boulders or concrete sort of emplacements there that would act to redirect or stop the natural flow of water from that driveway pond area to this stream, which would falsely present it as intermittent based on that.
Right. Thanks. So, what's the pleasure of the board? Happy to take a motion. Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, I think we're saying this is an ephemeral stream, so I'll make a motion to issue a negative determination.
Do we need to close first? Can we go straight to the motion?
Yeah, sorry, close first. Brad, go ahead. Right.
Again, Tom, I was caught up doing my behind the scenes research. I didn't know if we asked the public if anyone is here for this.
I did. Nobody raised
Okay.
their hands. So.
Thank you. Sorry.
Yep.
So I'll make a motion to close the hearing.
And I'll second that motion.
All right. Motions made by Dennis, seconded by Jim to close the hearing. Any further discussion? This will be a roll call vote. Dennis Hubbard,
Aye.
Jim LaValle,
Aye.
David Millette,
Aye.
Carl Fawcett,
Aye.
and Tom Seidenberg also votes aye. Happy to take a motion on the RDA.
No, I'll make my motion to issue a negative determination.
I will second.
All right, motion's been made by Jim, seconded by Dennis to issue a negative determination. Any further discussion? This will be a roll call vote. Dennis Hubbard,
Aye.
Jim LaValle,
Aye.
David Millette,
Aye.
Carl Fawcett,
Aye.
Tom Seidenberg votes nay. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Could I just ask, will the document be sent to the homeowner as the applicant, or should I expect it to the office that I listed?
So typically I send it to whoever's listed as the applicant.
Okay.
And then if it's not the representative, I'll copy the representatives as well. So
Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to so they know. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Next up on the agenda, we have a request for determination of applicability for 1312 North Main Street for the replacement of a septic system. I'll read that into the meeting notice, into the record. Town of Lancaster Conservation Commission, Town of Lancaster Conservation Commission Notice of Public Hearing, September 24th, 2024. Pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and the Lancaster Wetlands Protection Bylaw, the Town of Lancaster Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing via Zoom on Tuesday, September 24th, 2024 at 7 p.m. to hear and act upon the following matter. A request for determination of applicability filed by Dave Samosky, 1312 North Main Street, Lancaster, Mass. For the replacement of a septic system. The property is located at 1312 North Main Street, Lancaster, Mass. And is identified as Assessor's Map 30, Parcel 156.B. Copy of the application and accompanying documents are on file in the Office of Community Development and Planning, 701 Main Street, Lancaster, Mass. 978-365-3326. Who do we have on the call for this?
Brian Marchetti here with McCarty Engineering, and Dave
Hi, Brian.
Sarnowski. How are you? And Dave Sarnowski, the applicant, is also available.
All right. Welcome to you both. Do you want to tell us about your project?
Yeah, absolutely. So Dave and Lee Sarnowski, a little over a year or so ago, purchased a property in Lunenburg. They've since built a new home and have moved into the home. And as part of the purchase and sale process to sell the house here in Lancaster, the Title V found the septic had failed. So we did test bits, figured out a new system. And we've designed and gotten a reserve or a new replacement system approved on the lot through Board of Health. So this is kind of the final step here in order to obtain the permits necessary for them to move forward with their purchase and sale. So currently this lot, if you're familiar with it, is located right on Main Street. The entire property is within the 200-foot riparian zone. The existing septic system where it stands now is located in front of the house, so between the house and the street. A portion of the existing septic system is within the 100-foot. So we have redesigned the system now to basically replace the septic tank in the same location, which is just to the left side of the house. If you're looking toward the street. So the septic tank is within the 100-foot in a riparian, but it's entirely within existing landscaped and previously developed and disturbed riverfront area. But we've located the entire replacement leaching bed outside of the 100-foot. And we've located all the components of the leaching bed so that they avoid any vegetation that's out in the yard, so we won't have to remove any trees as a result of this replacement. So the new system will be in front of the house. It'll all be outside of the 100-foot inner riparian zone. It's located closer to the street and right by the existing driveway. And again, all impacts are within previously disturbed and previously degraded. It's all within an existing lawn area right now. So I do have a plan if I could share that.
Sure, please do.
So if you see here, here's the house. The existing septic tank is located right here. The D box is up here of the existing system, and you can see the fingers of the septic fields that go into here, which is within the 100-foot inner riparian zone. Like this is the riparian zone line right here. So the replacement system, like I said, we're going to put the tank in the exact same location. And the entire new bed is going to be located here, which is outside of the 100-foot inner riparian zone. When we did soil testing on the property, all of the material that we excavated was found to be a sand. So it's a very good porous material. We sent a sample in to the lab at Yankee Engineering and Testing. They tested the soil and confirmed that we can use that as within our septic bed. So it's all good septic sand. So there'd be no mounding required here. Groundwater was deep enough. It's going to basically be dug up and replaced or installed, and you'll see just the same level lawn area back when it's finished constructed. So as part of this, as I said, it's all within lawn area. We are proposing just an erosion control line here, erosion control barrier, down gradient. Basically, it's pretty level up there, so there's really no grade there. But between the proposed work, limit of work, and the resource area in the back, the stream, there's an existing stream right here on the back side of the property that basically follows the property line. So again, all work will be performed outside of the 100-foot inner riparian zone. And really, you can see the only available property that's left that's outside of the 100-foot inner riparian zone and within the street is this little corner here of the property where the replacement system's going. So I'd be happy to answer any questions the commission might have.
All right, thank you. Brad, do you have comments?
I'm all set.
Okay, thanks, Brad. Commissioners, any comments or questions?
No.
Seeing none. Anyone?
I was just gonna say I just appreciate the efforts you went to try to keep it as far away and outside the 100-foot.
Thank you. And we did locate it, so we don't have to cut down any of the trees that are in the yard. Yeah.
Anyone from the public have comments or questions? Seeing none, seems pretty straightforward. Happy to take a motion to close.
Make a motion to close the hearing.
Second.
All right, motion's been made by Dennis, seconded by Jim to close the hearing. This will be a roll call vote. Jim LaValle.
Aye.
Dennis Hubbard.
Aye.
Carl Fawcett.
Aye.
Dave Millette.
Aye.
Tom Seidenberg also votes aye. Happy to take a motion for the determination. Go ahead, Jim. You've got your hand up.
Just question for Brad. Are you recommending a negative determination?
I am recommending that, yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I just didn't quite get it. And I agree. So I'll make a motion to issue a negative determination.
I'll second.
Right, motion's been made by Jim, seconded by Dennis to issue a negative determination. Any further discussion? Seeing none, this will be a roll call vote. Dennis Hubbard,
Aye.
Jim LaValle,
Aye.
David Millett,
Aye.
Carl Fawcett,
Aye.
and Tom Seidenberg also votes aye. Okay,
All right, thank you very much.
thank you, everyone. Okay, next up on our agenda, we have a notice of intent for 242 Bolton Station Road, construction of a detached garage. I'll read the meeting notice into the record. Town of Lancaster Conservation Commission Notice of Public Hearing, September 24th, 2024. Pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and the Lancaster Wetlands Protection Bylaw, the Town of Lancaster Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing via Zoom on Tuesday, September 24th, 2024 at 7 p.m. to hear and act upon the following matter. A notice of intent filed by Vahid Mahdavi, sorry if I screwed that up, 242 Bolton Station Road, Lancaster, Mass, for the construction of a detached garage within the 200-foot outer riparian zone. The property is located at 242 Bolton Station Road, Lancaster, Mass, and is identified as assessors parcel map 42, parcel 130. A copy of the application and accompanying documents are on file in the Office of Community Development and Planning, 701 Main Street, Lancaster, Mass, 978-365-3326. Who do we have online to talk about this project?
Good evening, board. I am here representing the Madavis. I am Mandy Hicks from Guaranteed Builders. If I can just share my screen, I can pull up the plan to go over this.
Please go ahead.
Okay. Okay. All right. Are you able to see that?
We do not.
No.
Second. One second here. Sorry about that. All right. How about now?
Yes, now we can see it. Thank
Okay.
you.
No problem. Okay, so we are proposing to build a 26 by 36 detached garage. The back corner of that garage is in that 200-foot outer riparian zone. The foundation will consist of a 4-foot frost wall and a 4-inch cement slab. We are currently out of the 100-foot buffer zone. The area it is being placed from this corner to that edge of grass to this steep slope over here is about 70 feet of the disturbed area of existing lawn. So we are going to be doing the back portion within that area, placing some straw wattles to prevent any runoff towards the wetlands. We also will be, any stockpiling would be out of that 200-foot riparian zone as well. The placement portion that's in that riparian zone, due to fire safety, they strongly recommend the structure being 10 feet off of an existing dwelling. The Madavis also have a garage under. So the reason why we couldn't push it a bit forward was because the existing vehicles, that would prevent them to be able to back in and out of their existing garage. I did submit a wetland delineation report as well that I can pull up too if you need to see. But we are just asking for a order of conditions for us to be able to construct the garage within the 200-foot riparian zone.
All right. Thank you. Brad, do you have comments? Brad, I don't know. Are you're on mute still?
Okay. Sorry, the computer's a little slow here. So it's pretty minor work in terms of what's in the riverfront area. I think one of the comments from Mass DEP was an alternatives analysis, which pretty much said what I would anticipate, that there's a variety of reasons why you can't really locate this in a better place that would be less of a detriment to the environment. Um, so I think that they've satisfied the alternatives analysis. The other comment from Mass DEP was they were looking for the total area of riverfront as well as the amount altered. Yes, those are things you normally put on the application. But at the end of the day, intuitively, this is well below the threshold for being above and beyond what's allowed. So, if the commission's okay without having those numbers in place, we can put those numbers into the order of conditions rather than wait for the applicant to provide them and put them on the application, for instance. If this was anything other than a very small corner of a garage, I would put the onus on the applicant. But if that's the one thing that might be holding this up, I just wanted to throw that out there. But other than that, the other comment was the intermittent stream that was shown on the plan. I had this comment as well. It did look to be perennial under the USGS map, so I presumed it was. So there's actually shown as perennial now. I think an earlier rendition of the plan, there was less of a riverfront impact shown. So it's there. I think what's being shown is something that's can be permitted at this point.
Right. Thank you, Brad. Commissioners, any comments or questions? Not seeing any comments or questions from the public. Not seeing any there either. Seems pretty straightforward. Can't comment for the rest of the commission, but I'm fine, Brad, with, as you suggest, not holding up this to get the numbers on the plan, but have them as part of the order of conditions. I think that's fine. It's pretty de minimis impact. So if the rest of the commission agrees, happy to take a motion to close.
Yep, motion to close the hearing.
second,
All right, motion's been made by Jim, seconded by David to close the hearing. Any further discussion? This will be a roll call vote. Dennis Hubbard,
Aye.
Jim LaValle,
Aye.
Carl Fawcett,
Aye.
David Millett,
aye,
Tom Seidenberg also votes aye. And can we have a motion to issue an order of conditions?
Yep, motion to issue an order of conditions.
second,
Right, motion was made by Jim, seconded by David to issue an order of conditions. Any further discussion?
Do we need to call out adding the condition for the disturbed area?
It's actually part of the order
Standard
of conditions form.
Okay.
You do have to fill out that number, so we can't issue it without it.
Okay, just checking. We do need a special condition for that.
Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, this will be a roll call vote. Carl Fawcett,
Aye.
Dennis Hubbard,
Aye.
Jim LaValle.
Aye.
Oh, the names moved on me. I don't, says it, David Millett,
aye,
Tom Seidenberg also votes aye. Okay. All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, guys. I appreciate your time.
Welcome.
You're welcome. All right, next up on our agenda, we have a notice of intent for New England Power Company, right-of-way easements, construction of access road improvements, and permanent work pads serving transmission lines. Let me read the notice into the record. Town of Lancaster Conservation Commission Notice of Public Hearing, September 24th, 2024. Pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and the Lancaster Wetlands Protection Bylaw, the Town of Lancaster Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing via Zoom on Tuesday, September 24th, 2024 at 7 p.m. to hear and act upon the following matter. A notice of intent filed by New England Power Company, 170 Data Drive, Waltham, Mass, to perform access road improvements and create permanent work pads within an existing right-of-way that serves several overhead transmission and sub-transmission lines in central Massachusetts. The work spans several properties within easements, including parcels on Brockman Road Rear, Chisholm Trail, Fort Pond Road, Lunenburg Road Rear, North Main Street, Old Union Turnpike, Shirley Road, and Stagecoach Road. A copy of the application and accompanying documents are on file in the Office of Community Development and Planning, 701 Main Street, Lancaster, Mass. 978-365-3326. Okay, who do we have online to tell us about this project?
Tom, just for the record, I'm in a butter on this,
Okay,
so I want to declare that before we start going.
great. Thanks, Dennis.
I will be abstaining.
Good evening.
Go ahead, Erin.
Sure. Hi, good evening. My name is Erin Worski. I'm with New England Power, and here with us tonight is Jen Bonta from TRC. And we're going to kind of tag team here. New England Power is proposing to do a series of transmission line upgrades to an existing transmission line. The line designation is the 343 line. And as mentioned, the project does span through Lancaster, but it's actually a much larger transmission line upgrade project that runs from Millbury, Mass, all the way up into Ayr, so about 37 miles in length. The transmission line itself was installed in the 1960s, so there has been identified needs for maintenance, which will require select structure replacements, optical ground wire installation, and also replacements of insulators on the transmission line itself. Along with the transmission line upgrades, we are proposing access road improvements along the existing network of gravel access roads, and we'll also be installing permanent work pads. We are selectively grading a number of work pads in the right-of-way, but we're not proposing any sort of new access roads, no impervious surfaces, no tree clearing. Much of the transmission line work obviously falls under the Wetlands Protection Act and the town bylaw for wetland exemption for public utility maintenance. But because of the access road work and the work pads, we filed this as a kind of a collective or a holistic view for the commission. The project itself is actually broken up into two phases. So phase one is likely to go, starting in January under planned outages. And then phase two is, and phase one is basically targeted structure replacements and some of that maintenance that I mentioned before, the OPGW and the insulator replacements. And then phase two is coming along later with a replacement of all the wood pole structures. They're going from wood pole.
There's someone labeled iPhone. Could you please? Okay.
Sorry. And then phase two is going to be at a to be determined schedule. And they'll be replacing the remaining wood structures to engineered steel poles. The project's gone through a number of agency reviews. We went through our MEPA process in 2023 and finished up earlier this year in 2024 with a single environmental impact report certificate. We've filed with the Army Corps of Engineers, with the state DEP. We've been in consultation with Department of Conservation and DCR,
Recreation.
Thank you. My God, it's like slipping my mind. And then Natural Heritage. And the project also runs through 10 municipalities. So we've been filing notices of intent with those municipalities as well. And then I can pass it over to Jen. You can kind of go through the details on the impacts, and then we can answer any questions that you might have.
Yeah, thank you. So as you can understand, there will be temporary and permanent impacts for a project like this along the right of way. The majority of the impacts are temporary, but of note in BVW, we do have one structure replacement within BVW. So there will be about 67 square feet of permanent impact for the new foundation, which is proposed to be larger than the current one that's being removed. There's also temporary and permanent impacts to riverfront area. All of the work paths in riverfront area are planned to be loamed and seeded to foster vegetation restoration. The permanent impacts are a result from work paths that need grading, which will again be loamed and reseeded, and the access road improvements within that area. Bordering land subject to flooding, there's both temporary and permanent impacts from construction matting and work paths and road improvements. Inland bank, there'll be matting and work paths, pull pads, access road construction, land underwater as well from matting and work paths and pull pads. And there are also temporary and permanent impacts in the buffer zone. Again, work pads, grading, access road improvements, all of that. But within the 100-foot buffer zone, all work paths will be loamed and seeded as needed again, so restored essentially. And there are no impervious roads or work paths being proposed on this site, so we are working to minimize the impacts that we are having. We're also exempt from the stormwater permit for this town. Sorry, I'm reading my notes. We're working with NHESP, Natural Heritage, we're ongoing working with them, and we're still finalizing meetings, and we plan to put in all species protection plans and mitigations that they require. If they require a conservation and management plan. And again, that's ongoing at the moment. So thanks.
Okay, thank you. So Brad, do you have comments?
So I think this is why it's great to listen to the presentation because it painted a completely different picture than when I was reading the application. So some of the bigger concerns I had coming here tonight that I'm less concerned about now is the work in the resource areas. Particularly when I looked at the numbers for bordering land subject to flood and other things. From what's being described is it's not a fill scenario. It's more a temporary construction access scenario. So that kind of makes me feel a lot better about the project in that what looks like red flag warning numbers on an application, I'm less concerned about now hearing how things are going to actually work, which makes sense having seen some projects of a lesser scope under power lines before in other communities I've worked in. So I have not had a chance to look at any of the resource areas in terms of what I would want to look at specifically. Now listening to the presentation is just where there would be a permanent alteration. I'd be happy to give a cursory look at areas for the commission as well. But I want to focus on what's permanent. And then the other comment I have too is I did notice that the department has not issued a file number yet for this project. So the commission wouldn't be able to take action tonight too.
Okay, thanks, Brad. Commissioners, any comments or questions?
It's part of this. It's like a big road improvement or access road improvement, like putting down gravel. And so I guess my concern, which I know they address putting barriers, is, some of this goes right next to the cook area of making sure vehicles don't have access to that area. Because it looks from some of the photos that it's going to be, a nice gravel access.
That's correct. We are only refreshing what is currently out there. I'm just looking at the plans. We are not actually traversing Cook's Pond or the open water there. We're actually just working from either side of the transmission line. If I could point you to page 45 of 84 of figure 2, that kind of just depicts how access is coming in from I guess it's east and west there. Is it east and west, north and south? East and west on the plans, yeah. And as I mentioned, the access roads themselves, they are existing today. This effort is a widening effort. If anything, we're basically targeting pothole filling. If there's rilling happening on the access road, we're smoothing those out and widening it to its original extent. As far as the sloping into open water, that all will be revegetated. We'll maintain soil erosion sediment controls throughout the duration of construction up until the point where we find it stable and fully vegetated before removing them. So we wouldn't see any sort of sedimentation issues into that open water.
You all set, Carl?
Yes.
Great, thanks. Jim, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So I think you guys have done a very nice job in acting very responsibly, which I love to see. I do want to echo what Brad was saying about permanent change areas, that I would like to get a better understanding of those areas. So I think, for me, I probably wouldn't be ready to vote on this today.
That's understandable. I think, with a project being this linear, we're about, I think, 5 miles or so from town line to town line. So, the numbers do certainly add up. What we quantified as permanent impact roads, impacts from the access road, was just a conservative way of being able to calculate what we were doing, especially from a MIPA perspective, when they do really look at land disturbance and land disturbance in that regard. So it's been quantified that way. And then as far as the work paths themselves, yes, there will be grading, but we are planning to, like Jen said, lumen seed those so that those will be fully vegetated, and that will just allow for future maintenance of the lines, so that the large pieces of equipment, as they're stationed just below the structure, if they're doing any sort of aerial work in the future, they have just a base, so that their vehicles aren't sinking in sediment. And we can certainly walk some of the right of way, any of the right of way, if you'd like. We can kind of point out those, how that operation is going to take place. But as far as kind of true, wetland loss, it's really that 67 square feet of the structure leg that we couldn't actually shift outside of resource areas.
Okay.
And that is going from a wood pole structure, which is about 36 or so inches in diameter. And there's a larger foundation base of that, which is, 3 to 5 feet in diameter. And that's where that number comes from.
Okay.
You're all set, Jim?
Yeah, I'm just thinking, it wouldn't be a bad idea to see that area even from afar. And maybe we can think of something to do to replicate that area someplace else. I don't know if that is feasible or not, but think about it.
Okay, thanks, Jim.
Yep.
I only have one comment. So I did a number of site visits as part of a certificate of completion for the last big project through town on this line. So I maybe walked a quarter of the right of way with a representative from BSC who was doing the COC review. Between poles 219 and 220, there's a pretty steep hill that's been a very large rut has been created in it from ATVs or whatever off-road vehicles. I didn't think it was germane to the project that we were issuing the COC for, so I didn't really complain about it then. But if you're working on improvements, I don't know if that fits into the areas that you would fix. I don't know that that path actually would be used by your vehicles. I think for that project, you guys accessed that section a different way, and that erosion was not from any of the work that you had done, but was, I don't know, obviously it was caused by some kind of vehicle. Is that the kind of thing that you would be doing, or you're just looking at the existing access roads?
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to see it, but for the most part, we're using all of the same not trails, but the same existing access that that previous project used. I think that was the K and the L line. And so if there is something that we can address, while we're out there, we're happy to address that.
Yeah, I mean, that was the only really problem point that I saw for all of the line that I had walked.
Do you think it's just, illegal use of the right of way from ATV?
I do. Honestly, yes, I do.
Okay.
I think that's what it is.
Okay. Because we are proposing, gates and guardrails where, we're finding, problematic areas. I mean, we know we can't solve everybody's use of the right of way. They always find a way in. But if there is a location that we can identify that, could be a main corridor to get in there, we can certainly address that with, large boulders or what have you. If it's a gate that we can put in, we can also do that as well.
I mean, that access was gated. It's right next to the town solar farm. So I actually think that this is might be part of Cook. Anyway, that was my only comment.
Okay. I mean, we've been talking with, is this DCR land? Does DCR manage that? No,
it's town land.
Okay. Yeah. If we do go out and we want to look at that location as well, we can certainly take that back.
All right. Commissioners, Brad, any further comments or questions? Any comments or questions from the general public? Oh, Brad, your video's back, so you have something to say?
Well, I was just curious in terms of any site visits. I would, again, like to look at least a small portion of this project, but I know we've heard some commissioners speak about it as well. So if you want me to coordinate a site visit to include commissioners, please let me know. Otherwise, I'm happy to work with the applicant and the representative on this.
Okay, thanks, Brad. Yeah, commissioners, if you want to, if there's something you want to see or you want to participate, reach out to Brad quickly, and then Brad can coordinate.
Yep, will do.
If there's no further discussion, happy to take a motion to continue, presumably to the next meeting. Our next meeting is, I believe, October 8th. Would you like to request a continuance?
Yes,
please.
we would.
Okay.
Yep, I'll make the motion to continue the hearing to October 8th.
I'll second.
All right, motion's been made by Jim, seconded by David to continue to October 8th. Any further discussion? This will be a roll call vote. Jim LaValle.
Aye.
Dennis Hubbard.
Abstain.
Oh, right. Carl Fawcett.
Aye.
David Millette.
Aye.
And Tom Seidenberg also votes aye. All right. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's see here. Where'd my window go? Okay, next up on the agenda was Zero Hilltop Road. As I mentioned earlier, we're not going to be opening this hearing because all of the abutters were not properly noticed. So I expect that we will open it at the next meeting, but I guess I'm not positive. Brad, is that they're going to be noticed in time for the next meeting? Is that the expectation?
That's the expectation. I'll have to confirm that ahead of time for the commission, though.
Okay, yep, of course.
Since
So
we didn't open it and continue, do we need to repost?
since the abutters are being re-notified, yes, it'll be a new,
Full posting. Okay.
yeah.
Can you clarify that, Tom, for me, please?
So I took Dennis's question to mean that we have to post the meeting notice again, right?
That was my question. Yeah.
So in terms of the legal advertisement in the paper?
Yeah. Do we need to do that? I mean, normally we would open and then continue, but since we're not even opening and the date's going to be a mismatch, do we need to refile essentially everything?
No, I would suggest reading the notice and then simply not opening the hearing, but reading the notice and then mentioning that the hearing's being postponed to the next meeting date. That way we don't have to re-advertise in the newspaper. The newspaper catches anybody that's here reading it from the newspaper. But the abutters not being notified properly, you may be missing some in that aspect of it. So I think that covers that rather than doing a new newspaper advertisement, for instance.
Okay, so Brad, you want me to read the meeting notice?
I would suggest doing that, and I think you're covered by doing so.
And then it's a continuance?
I would word it as a postpone. You know, you read the notice, and then you can reiterate what you've already mentioned, that it's being postponed till the next meeting, due to the abutters not being properly notified. And then I don't think it needs to be more complex than that, but I'm fairly confident that we won't need to re-advertise as long as you read the notice.
Okay then, so I will read the notice. Town of Lancaster Conservation Commission, Notice of Public Hearing, September 24th, 2024. Pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and the Lancaster Wetlands Protection Bylaw, the Town of Lancaster Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing via Zoom on Tuesday, September 24th, 2024 at 7 p.m. to hear and act upon the following matter. a notice of intent filed by Zero Hilltop Road LLC, 98 Adams Street, Leominster, Mass. Excuse me. For the construction of roadway and utility infrastructure in support of a future 18-lot residential subdivision. The property is located at 0 Hilltop Drive, that should be road, Lancaster, Mass, and is identified as Assessor's Map 32, Parcel 1.H. Copy of the application and accompanying documents are on file in the Office of Community Development and Planning, 701 Main Street, Lancaster, Mass, 978-365-3326. And we will be postponing this due to defective notice to the next meeting. All right. So that next meeting is October 8th. Yes. All right. That completes the public hearings part of our agenda. Much faster than I expected. All right. Good job, guys. Discussion, enforcement order 397 Centerbridge Road. Brad, want to give us an update?
Sure. So I did try to reach out to DEP again. I have not been successful at connecting with them on this. So as mentioned, I reached out to the town administrator's office as well. Actually received an update from them during tonight's meeting. I just happened to see a message come in. So it looks like their office has authorized us to speak with town council on this. So I can't make the requested time with them. I have a conflict, but I'll coordinate something with them hopefully this week and get moving on it. And again, ideally for this, I don't think we need so much town council for their legal opinion necessarily, other than, at this point, what we really need is to get the property owner to come to the commission and move forward with rectifying it. If things don't go well once they're here, presumably, we can look, not speculate at this point, but I think what we need them for is pretty minimal, is what I'm trying to say currently. We just haven't been getting a response, and we need a better way to get them to come to the commission. So that's what I'm hoping to gain at this point.
Okay. Commissioners, any comments or questions?
Nope.
Just thank you, Brad, for continuing to push on this. I know this has been a long process, but appreciate it.
All right. Next up on the agenda, we have a vote for officers. We actually did that last week. The next two items on the agenda, general discussions regarding the wetlands protection bylaw updates and oversight of open space. I didn't prepare anything for these because I expected a pretty long meeting with all of the new hearings on the agenda. So we can table these to the next meeting. Basically, when I asked Brad to put these on the agenda 2 weeks ago, I just wanted them to be hanging out on the agenda. So when we didn't have long meetings, that we had them on the agenda so that we could actually discuss them. I don't want to keep folks too long. So I think, this has actually been a pretty efficient meeting. But since I'm not prepared to discuss either of these items, I think we'll table them to the next opportunity. If anyone has any comments or thoughts on these and they want to share them, happy to hear anything. Right, hearing none.
Not at the moment.
Oh, go ahead, Carl.
Just one point is I'm not going to be available for the next meeting. But I noticed on the town meeting that we're going to have in October that they're formalizing a couple of the new properties to come under the Conservation Commission and to go with all the other properties. Myself, I'm I'm going to dig in to see. I don't really know what properties those are, and I think it's important to spend some time of, what is our role in that, and what are the properties, and you know what access do people have, et cetera. That's part of that discussion.
Yes, definitely. I think in my time on the commission, we haven't spoken about the parcels under our jurisdiction very often. I think when I first joined the commission, there was maybe at the tail end of an effort to organize all of that. And generally, when David Kuntz was the agent, he did a lot of the monitoring that goes along with having those parcels. But I think a lot of that fell by the wayside with some of the turnover that we had in staff and also the commission. We used to have several members of the commission who would frequent the commission properties as well. And so they were quite familiar with the state of the properties. I don't know. I personally don't use them very often. The last time I was at Cook was when I showed Brad the parking lot, and I haven't walked Cook in many years. I haven't walked the town forest in many years. So I think that's something. I don't know that if any of you guys are frequent users of our properties, but I think we do need as a commission to become a little more familiar with our properties and understand how they're used and how we need to manage them. So I do have a list, Carl, of what I believe all of the properties that the commission owns or has conservation restrictions on. I'd be happy to send you that list to satisfy your curiosity. I don't know how complete or accurate it is. It was basically just digging through the registry of deeds. So,
yeah, I'd be interested to be a good starting point. And I think Cook is an area that parking lot. I know the Lancaster Land Bank and the CPA. I mean, they've all talked about making that more usable and seeing, can we make it usable for people with disability. But I think, where is that, do we help make that happen or, push that along? It seems like it's kind of not going anywhere.
Yeah. So as the representative to the CPA committee, I've been, becoming aware of just how good of a resource that can be to the commission for improving its lands. And so I've told the rest of the CPA committee that I plan on discussing with the commission projects that we would like to put out to bid through CPA and get funding for. And so I'm hoping to be able to have this discussion with the commission and then have us file applications with the CPA committee to do some improvements. Specifically with respect to the Cook parking lot, the land trust did file a notice of intent to fix that, to make improvements there. I thought that we approved the order of conditions, and that John Farnsworth was going to try and see if the state would do some of the work for free. I don't know what became of that, and I'm not actually entirely certain that we did approve the order of conditions. Maybe that was continued. I don't know. If Jim, do you remember if we approved that order of conditions?
Yeah, I don't know if we approved it or not. I do remember it coming before us.
Yeah. But that was probably, it was at least a year ago now.
Yeah.
So I don't think anything's moving there. So
yeah, I'll talk to John. I'll run to John sometime and ask him if that's moved anywhere. Because that was about a year ago is when I heard about it through the land trust. I was at a land trust meeting. So that they were talking about that.
Yeah, so I don't think the commission's been very diligent in its responsibilities the last few years. And that falls on me as being a member of the commission. So I'm going to try and get us to look at some of the non permit work. Okay, so next up on the agenda, we have 3 sets of minutes. Thank you, Brad and Roz, for getting us 3 sets of minutes. I do have comments for 1 set of minutes, so let's do them one by one. August 13th, does anyone have any comments on the minutes?
Yeah, I do. So on item number 3, it's 10 Fire Road 54. Down in the second paragraph, it calls for a continuance of 0 Heritage Lane. So it should be 10 Fire Road 54.
Okay, so Jim, I just asked that you send your corrections in email to Brad,
Okay.
just so that we can get those in. But does anyone else have any comments or changes for those minutes? Not happy to take a motion to approve as amended.
Yep. Motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Second.
All right, motion's been made by Jim, seconded by David to approve the August 13th minutes as amended. This will be a roll call vote. Dennis Hubbard.
Aye.
Jim LaValle.
Aye.
Dave Millette.
Aye.
Carl Fawcett.
Aye.
Thomas Seidenberg also votes aye. For the August 27th minutes, I have a comment. I don't think that we actually voted to continue 10 Fire Road 54. I think it was on the agenda as a continuance, and we knew that we weren't having the meeting. I also don't have in my notes that we voted to continue. So I think that entire section is basically stricken. Although I didn't review the recording, but that's my only comment. Does anyone else have any comments or amendments? Happy to take a motion to approve as amended.
Make a motion to approve the 8:27 minutes as amended.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, motion was made by Carl, seconded by David to approve as amended. This will be a roll call vote. Dennis Hubbard.
Abstain.
Jim LaValle.
Abstain too. I wasn't there.
Dave Millette.
Aye.
Carl Fawcett.
Aye.
Tom Seidenberg also votes aye. I'm just writing notes. Just give me a second. And last up, we have meeting minutes for September 10th. Does anyone have any comments or corrections? I see none. I have none. Happy to take a motion to approve as is.
Yeah, motion to approve the meeting minutes of September 10th, 2024.
Second.
Motion was made by Jim, seconded by Dennis to approve the minutes of September 10th. This will be a roll call vote. Dennis Hubbard.
Aye.
Jim LaValle.
Aye.
David Millette.
Aye.
Carl Fawcett.
Aye.
And Tom Seidenberg also votes aye. Okay, and that brings us to the end of the agenda. Does anyone have anything else they'd like to discuss tonight? All right, seeing none, happy to take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, motion was made by David, seconded by Jim to adjourn the meeting. Roll call vote. Dennis Hubbard,
Aye.
Jim LaValle,
Aye.
David Millette,
Aye.
Carl Fawcett,
Aye.
and Tom Seidenberg also votes aye. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good evening.